PDX Guitar Freak, and in this video I'm going to show you my newest guitar, which is also my first baritone guitar. And I gotta tell you, I am having so much fun with this thing. Now, anytime you buy a new guitar, it should be fun, right? But when it's something that's so different than any guitar you've ever owned before, it just makes it even more fun. So this guitar is one of Reverend's Descent models, and there are two variants of the Descent. There's the W, formerly known as the HC or HC90, and there's the RA. Now there are two primary differences between those guitars. It's the bridge and the pickups. Now the pickups, you might already be looking at these pickups right now and thinking, you know, what the hell are those? Which was kind of my first reaction when I saw Railhammer pickups. Railhammer is the brand that Reverend owns, also designed by the founder of Reverend Guitars. It's a very interesting, unique design, and I will go into more detail on that in a little bit. But the W comes with P90 voiced pickups, and the RA comes with humbuckers. As for the bridge, the W has a Wilkinson trim, and the RA has a hardtail, a fixed bridge. Now when it came time to choose between the two Descent models or variants, I had a really hard time because they both had components that were very enticing to me. Okay, on the W, and it's called the W because it's got the Wilkinson trim, that was just, to see a Wilkinson trim like this on a baritone guitar was just too much for me. It was too cool, too enticing. And also it has the P90 in the neck position, which I really like. Now the RA, what I liked about that one is the humbucking pickup in the bridge position. So really what I wanted was a hybrid of the two, which isn't available. So I thought to myself, okay, the W has two out of the three variants, or the two components that are really important to me. So I'm going to go for that. And if I don't like the P90 in the bridge position, I can either, you know, promptly return the guitar, or I can swap it out for a humbucker. I can order one of the Railhammer chisel humbuckers, which comes in the RA, and pop it in there. So I'll talk a little bit later about what my actual future plans are for this guitar, hint hint. But in the meantime, I'm going to take you through the specs. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. I think it's a really cool guitar, first of all, up front, if it's not already obvious by my excitement. Now, one of the things that was really compelling about Reverend guitars, or their baritone models, was the scale length. Okay, the scale length is 26 3/4 inches, which is one thing that they highly tout in their marketing, for good reason, because that's it's the smallest scale electric baritone guitar on the market that I'm aware of, that I can find. So I created a little chart here that I'm going to put up on the screen that shows some other common baritone, electric baritones, and what their scale lengths are, so you can see how it compares. Okay, so at the top there you can see the Reverend Descents at 26.75 inch scale. Okay, right after that, very, very close, are the ESP LTD models. There's various ESP LTDs, and they clock in at 27 inches. After that, we've got the PRS 277, the name based on the fact that it's got a 27.7 inch scale. And actually, if the Reverend Descent did not exist, the PRS would have been my next choice. Okay, that was my second choice. And then after that, we've got a couple of guitars here. We've got a Chapman ML1, a Hagstrom Viking, and the Ibanez Metalworthy RG IB6, all at 28 inches. After that, we've got the Dan Electro 56 and the Gretsch G5265 at 29.75 inches. And then finally, the Squier Jazzmaster at a whopping 30-inch scale. Now, to help further put that into perspective, let's talk about how that compares to your standard guitar scale and a bass. So first of all, a Les Paul clocks in at 24.75 inches, and a Strat is 25.5 inches. So you can see the Reverend is 1 1/4 scale length longer than the Strat. So not a huge difference, right? Now, in terms of your standard bass scale length, that's 34 inches. Now, it might be hard to tell from this chart, but the Dan Electro and the Gretsch at 29.75 inches are exactly halfway between the scale length of a Strat and a standard bass. So let me isolate those three here and you can see how they look side by side. And I actually got to try the Dan Electro. The first thing that I noticed when I picked it up and I placed my hand in the lower fret area was it felt like playing a mini bass, right? That reach that you had and the spacing between the frets and all that. More the reach, I would say. I felt like I was playing a mini bass. But don't get me wrong, I liked the Dan Electro. I thought it was a cool guitar, especially for the price, and it's got that awesome Dan Electro retro vibe to it. But when I pick up the Reverend, it has a much more natural feel. Making the transition from a standard guitar to the Reverend felt really easy for me. Now, of course, when you pick it up and you feel the big thick strings, that feels a little bit different. That you should expect that to feel different, but the scale length felt really natural. All right, let's go a little deeper into the specs now. So the body is made of Carina, which all Reverend guitars are made of. Kind of, if you're not familiar with that, it's a nice kind of mahogany type substitute, a little bit richer sounding, I think. And it's made in Korea. Carina body made in Korea. So all their guitars are made in Korea and then shipped back to the US where they do the QC and the setup and all that. It comes in 3 different finishes, the W does. There's transparent white, which you're seeing here. There's oceanside green, which is like a seafoam green, and then there's the red, which I think they call burnt brick. Now the seafoam green is the one that I mostly see people playing. It's probably the most popular one. But because of that, I kind of got turned off to that color. I think it looks cool, don't get me wrong, but because so many people use it, I was like, yeah, I want to do something different. So I thought the white looked really sleek, so I went that route. As we mentioned, we've got the Wilkinson trim. We've got the rail hammer pickups, and what's different about these is you'll notice that it's got rails below the low strings and poles beneath the high strings. So it's supposed to, the rails are supposed to have, produce a tighter low end and the poles fatter highs. So that's the intent, is to help balance that out appropriately. And now, how well does it work? It's hard for me to tell. I mean, I like the sound of these pickups, so don't misinterpret what I'm saying. But for me to do a real true A/B or test, I'd have to slap in a non-rail hammer and see how it compares. But I like the pickups, and I think the concept is very, very cool. So for the controls, obviously we've got the toggle switch, volume, tone, and bass contour. Now there is a treble bleed circuit, so as you roll down the volume, you're not going to have that loss of high end that you often have. So I love having treble bleed circuit. The bass contour is really interesting, and that's something I've never seen before, and Reverend does this on a lot of their guitars. Basically, it acts as a bass contour, right? It kind of rolls off some of that excessive low end. I originally, when I read about it, I thought the effect or impact was going to be more dramatic than it is. I'm not complaining. I think it works. It works great. I like it. And I'll do some sound clips here in just a second so you can hear the impact of using the bass contour. In fact, let's go ahead and jump on into that right now. So moving on to the neck, we have a roasted maple neck. I always love roasted maple necks. They just look delicious, for lack of a better term. We've got a Pau-Ferro fingerboard with 22 medium jumbo frets. The neck shape is, neck profile is medium oval, and it feels very Fenderish. Although if you look at the dimensions, 1st and 12th fret thickness, it's kind of similar in that respect to a Gibson Slim Taper, but due to the deeper shoulders and the medium C oval shape, it feels more Fenderish. And then up on the headstock, what's worth mentioning, well, you've got locking tuners, right? So that's always really, really nice to have on any guitar where you don't have a locking nut. And then also I want to call out, the Reverend headstock, kind of an interesting design. It's funny watching guitar manufacturers come up with new headstock designs. Sometimes they're really ugly and sometimes they're really cool. And I dig the Reverend headstock. It's kind of like a Strat with this extra little sawtooth there. So pretty cool. All right, now let's talk about the string gauge here. Because what Reverend has done is they've come up with a custom string set here made by SIT Strings, intended for use with this guitar. And it's basically a 12 to 68, but what makes it different than other baritone sets is that the G string is not a wound string like the lower 3 strings. It is a plain string, which helps for bending. Now, I got to tell you, this is this 3rd string, and by the way, it's tuned B to B, okay? That 3rd string is, it's 26 gauge. So if you're not familiar with string gauges off the top of your head, that's like a D string on a set of 10 gauge strings, all right? So it's pretty thick. You can feel that, how resonant it is. But I like that it's a plain string. So you can order the strings directly from Reverend, although they're currently out of stock. So I ordered some from SIT directly. Actually, Reverend, when they do sell them for less than SIT, so that's really cool once they get them back in stock, and I hope they do soon. I'll be ordering from them directly. All right, so at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that I was going into this not sure if I was going to like the P90 in the bridge position. And my final verdict, I dig it. I think it's a cool, gnarly tone, but I am going to swap it out for the Railhammer Chisel Humbucker, which comes in the RA. After fooling around, so when I first bought this guitar, I expected I'd be more using it for cleaner tones, right? Which I love. It sounds amazing clean. But once I started fooling around with those big heavy tones, I was like, oh man, I gotta hear this with the humbucker now. Because the humbuckers, typically sound a little cleaner than P90s. I thought the distortion sounded pretty good through it, don't get me wrong. And I could live with it, but I gotta get the humbucker, guys. So I'm gonna order it. It'll be on its way soon, and when I get it, I'll pop it back in, I'll do another video, and you can hear how it sounds with the humbucker version. I'm really excited to try that. That's going to give me that original configuration that I wanted. Wilkinson, humbucker, P90. And with the P90 in the neck and the bass contour, I'll still be able to get these cool clean tones that I'm really digging with this guitar. So I'm really excited. I can't wait to report back to you guys. All right, well that was my video, a quick review on the Reverend Descent W, and I hope you found it helpful, informative. I'll answer all questions as time allows, and until next time, rock on.